better.
Austin.
Matthew, live.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Good, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, great. I was going to say we're here on a wonderfully sunny day at the Fairfield Enterprise Centre in Louth. And yeah, I'd like to welcome Austin Hempstead to the Insight4business podcast
thanks for
show.
the invitation. Thank you for the invite.
And thank you for joining us, Austin.
Pleasure.
So,
I think.
We'll see when we get to it by the end. So I've known you for a couple of years now. And one point I'd like to make is that I learned a really good point early on at an event, I think it was run by the Hive or E-Factor. And it was about always adding value when you're in a meeting or with someone, maybe networking perhaps. And it's really stuck with me.
Good.
And yeah, maybe it resonated with me personally, but yeah, I'd just like to go on record and share that with our listeners and viewers. And thank you for that.
No, you're welcome. I think it's a really, a nice aim to have whenever you're talking with someone, have a meeting with someone. Just try and give them something of value, leave them with something of value. So if that's worked, if that's sat nicely with you, great.
It has, and I
Thanks
continue
for the
to
feedback.
do so.
Yeah, good to know. Good to know.
And well, I'll ask my first question then.
Right.
We may have mentioned this before, but what's the first job or gig you did and you got paid for?
Is that in the context of me as a sales trainer ever?
Ever when you were a young Austen Hempstead?
Okay, right. Right. My first job I was ever paid for, I got a job working for my sister's boyfriend, right? And I'd be 13 and he'd be 21. So I got a job with him at weekends and holidays, and he was a guy who used to buy cars at auctions and spray them up and sell them again, as it were. So I went into his workshop, as it were, Saturdays and Sundays, rubbing cars down. And that was it was a good experience. Great experience. Really good. That was my first paid job. So then I had some money to try and take my girlfriend out or whatever on a Saturday night. Yeah. So that was it. In a little lock-up garage. Yeah, that was it.
Well, that's great. 13. When we were chatting before, the first job that I really, cars related again.
Oh, yeah.
I think I was about 12, so similar age, and I started my own car washing round on the local estate, and I enjoyed doing a good job. That it grew from just washing the outside of cars to being asked to clean the inside of cars, and I learned a little bit about how you can get more value there from just that. That car thing that's out.
It's a great age to start learning about the value of money, isn't it? Suddenly it has.
Absolutely.
When you've worked for it,
it meant a lot. It was more difficult to part with.
Yeah,
because you had to be really invested in what you wanted to put.
I think I was paid at the time. I think I was paid £1 a day.
I
think it was £1 a day. It might have been £2. It was either £1 or £2 a day. I think that was it. Yeah, I think so.
I'm going to make a note of that. I charge about 50 pence a car as it was. 50 pence, maybe £1, and 50p for the inside. Brilliant. So what's the toughest learning experience you remember having in sales?
It's not a new one. I can't share anything new or revolutionary. The toughest learning experience was learning to manage no, being told no. In all its various forms. Because when I started in sales self-employed, and I was cold calling on the telephone before the days of the internet. So you for the most part use the Yellow Pages as your source. But of course, anyone who was trying to sell anything at the time, for the most part, well, certainly if they used the telephone, they'd use the Yellow Pages, and even the Yellow Pages people would ring business in there to sell more space in the Yellow Pages. So you're often talking to business owners or business people who were battered with phone calls every day, and the rejection could be pretty harsh, and to a young novice salesperson, that was kind of tough. And so even though after 2.5 or 3.5 months, even though I was earning more money than I'd ever earned in my life, because I got up to a pretty good start, was making money, even when I was on the verge of quitting because of the rejection. It's something that none of us like, and it's and everyone knows it. And as a young guy, you don't, the reason you don't maybe walk across the dance floor to ask that girl out. Because she might say no. That's the thing, isn't it? It's none of us.
But you're getting it sort of not just day in day out. It's minute in, minute out, I suppose,
yeah,
isn't
yeah,
it?
Yeah, you're getting constant rejection all day, you know. I used to spend half a day on the telephone every day, you know, every morning on the phone for 2.5, 3 hours, and making calls to go out and see people. And the rejection was pretty horrendous. But yeah, you learn how to deal with it and manage it. But yeah, that was probably the toughest learning experience. But you know, over the years, you know, I don't know how many times I've made a call and been told no, and in the end, you end up bulletproof. Really,
Yeah,
there's nothing that you haven't heard before.
That's it. So when you've heard it all, they pretty much bounce off. I suppose.
Yeah, they pretty much bounce off. Yeah, because you think, well, you know, when you've been 5 years in selling or 10 years in selling, and someone rejects you, particularly in an unpleasant way, you think, well, yeah, so what? So I've been hearing that for years, and I'm successful. I'm doing great. So but yeah, initially, really tough, and that's what drives most people, I think, out of sales initially, and stops them perhaps. Which one of the things certainly stops people being more successful than they might want to be, because they're just not managing to deal with no.
Yeah.
You know.
And yeah, I'm gonna have to learn a bit more of that. As you say, it can be a tough thing to get over.
Yeah, tough thing to come to terms with. But
I was talking to Anne Tate from the Hull Chamber of Commerce last week.
Yeah.
And Anne's been in various sales roles over the years, selling technology. She says, I know nothing about it, but she's a salesperson. And I was chatting about how I can make the most of my membership. And we were discussing sales and the process behind there. And she said that the thing that you said there is get on the phone, pick the phone up. You can't beat getting on the phone, can you? The face-to-face is always great, isn't it? But do you still rely on that, developing those relationships by getting on the phone, picking the phone up, talking to somebody?
Well, yes and no. I think at some point you've got to absolutely, you need to pick the phone, you know, otherwise you're going to fail. But I'm fortunate enough to have been around long enough now where I'm able to attract business to me.
Right, yeah.
So I don't cold call. I never, unless I'm helping a client, and then maybe I'll cold call. I'll say, okay, I'll show you. I'll make a cold call for you, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
But for me, I don't have to cold call. My business comes now to me purely through networking, whether that's face-to-face networking or online networking through platforms like LinkedIn, and referrals.
And you've built that through the hard work you put in, of course.
And that comes through hard work. Yeah, I didn't get there without the rejection and the phone calls and all the rest of it.
Yeah, there's no shortcut to that.
No, there's not a shortcut. You've got to do those hard yards, and those hard yards prove increasingly valuable in the years to come, because they give you the confidence, because it proves to you can create business out of nothing.
Yeah.
Out of nothing, just picking a phone up, and you can create business out of nothing.
I do find that inspiring, because that is where I'm at now, you know, and I need to be getting out there, so hitting the road, as it were, and getting out and driving some of these sales myself. So I think that's something I need to get on the wall. And
it's a privilege, because I mean, people said to me when I went into selling I went selling self-employed at 20, and because it was self-employed, okay, but by definition, I'll state the obvious. There's no basic wage. So if I didn't sell, I didn't eat. And people say, well, that's not very secure, is it? And I actually didn't see it like that. I saw it the opposite way. I thought, well, hold on a second. The only one person who can put me out of work here is me.
Yeah.
That's it. That's I could go work employed, get a salary elsewhere, and be doing pretty good, and still get made redundant at some point.
Yeah.
Or still, the company, for whatever reason. But I didn't, and that to me was insecure. I didn't like to not have that control. And I thought, if I'm going to succeed or fail, then it's going to be down to me.
Yeah.
And as a result of, all those kind of qualities that you need in sales, and all kinds of just being in business, being determined, being persistent, hanging on in there, then that ability is your basic wage. That's your security. That ability to pick the phone up and make business happen. You can't get more security than that.
You've just reminded me of, this must be 10 years ago if it stays, if not a bit more. Maybe I've been working 10, 15 years in my industry that was flexible packaging.
Right.
And I think I applied for a position as a salesperson because my father was a salesperson.
Right.
I think he worked for the Pru, knocking door to door, selling policies.
Right.
And and I wanted that challenge. That's why I applied for that role. I wanted that challenge, as you said, of it's on me, nobody else. Buck stops with me.
Yep.
So that's something. Yeah,
I think that's a great place to be. Doesn't suit everybody. It's not for everybody, and that's fine. But if it floats your boat, then it's great. It's really good, and it's a privilege to be able to maximise it.
That brings me on nicely into the next question that I've got, I suppose, and that's what's the best experience you've had in sales? What does that feel like? Those really good experiences.
I guess they're the equivalent of scoring a goal or something in football.
I like that one. Yeah.
It's there's different things that float my boat, as it were. Securing the deal, if you like, closing the sale, if you like. Somebody saying, "Yeah, we want to use you, Austin. Come and work with our sales team, or can you do some one-to-one coaching with me?" That's always that gives you yes. But at the same time, I get personally, I get a big high from giving ideas to people, and then a week, a month, or whatever later, they say, "The idea, I tried that, Austin, and it worked, and I got this, X, Y, Z happened because of it." And yes, and that gives me an awful lot of pleasure because I know I've given real value. Because when you're giving an idea to someone and they've made it work, then it doesn't just work the once. They can use that again and again and again, and it could make them thousands and thousands of pounds over the years that still to come. So different ways I get an awful lot of pleasure out of and get those highs out of sales. Getting the deal,
the training aspect as well. That teacher aspect of passing on the knowledge.
Yeah, passing on the knowledge. I love sharing ideas, and I love it on workshops when I'm doing workshops, because often I'm sat on workshops and with salespeople. A lot of salespeople are kind of, often they'll sit there and they're kind of thinking, what am I doing in this sales training workshop? Why am I here with this guy, Austin Hempstead? I know what I'm doing.
So that happens, that you can see those people.
Oh yeah, you can see it. There's some of them, they don't actually say it, but their body language, their facial expression. They'll sit there at the start of the workshop and they're kind of like, okay, let's see what you got. Let's see. Close. Because I've been around. I know what I'm doing here. I've sat on loads of sales training. And then what's really rewarding is, during the course of the workshop, you see them opening up. You share one or two ideas and things, and you can see the light starting going, and they think, "Wow, I never thought of that. That's a good idea." And you can see it in them, and I think, "Yes, I've got them."
Beautiful. That's lovely. That brings me on to a related question, I think. When I've come to the end of a project, sometimes you've invested a lot of time in that. And I've sometimes suffered from post-show blues.
Yes,
I've heard it called, where you feel a little bit down. You've put that hard work in. You've been really successful. You've launched, but then there's this little feeling of emptiness that, it's done. It's done. What do I do next?
Yes.
I just wondered, is this something you've noticed personally or with any of your teams? And if so, how have you dealt with it?
Yeah, no, I can empathise a lot with that. I can remember in my first sales role of selling life insurance, and we would have there was a board on the wall in the office, and you used to put plastic pips in it when you made a sale. So at any given moment in time, when you went in the office, you take a look at this board on the wall, and you could see how you were doing compared to everyone else in the office, kind of thing, And then at the end of every month, they cleared the board, because of course you start again next month, and then say first of the month, if you're in you think, oh no, where am I going to get that from again? I've wronged everybody. Think, wow, I've got to go again.
That's quite a visual impact there, isn't it?
Yeah,
you've seen your progress, and then the slate is
that's
literally
right.
wiped clean.
Yeah, that's right. And the better the month you had, the longer that line of pips, and you were feeling good all that month and pretty smug when you come in the office. That's me with that long line there. And then it's like, bang, it's all gone, and you're back to square one. And the way I encourage people to overcome that down on it, and to have that dip, or to minimise the effect of the dip, and sometimes eliminate the dip, is to have goals. Yeah. And that's really, really important. I think one of the biggest failures of a lot of salespeople is they simply don't have goals, and it's always amazed me is why would you not set goals? It's free. It costs nothing. It's if you do it right with SMART goals, as I'm sure you're familiar with SMART goals, Matthew. Then they can really inspire you, motivate you, stretch you, help you achieve more than you would have done. why would you not do it? But people don't, and as a consequence, they are far less successful than they could be.
Is that something you share in your training then? Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, because I think it's really important. I stumbled. Well, I didn't stumble across. I'd been, which again is something I share in my workshop. I've been in sales again about 2.5, 3 months. Again, around about that time, I was thinking of throwing the towel in because of the rejection, and I didn't realise I was setting a goal at the time. I just decided I needed a new car, kind of thing, because by now I was 21. Which young 21-year-old doesn't want a new car or a newer car? And I used that as a way of helping me pick that phone up again, as it were.
I've got the same goal personally, business-wise, which is a car. Yeah.
Right.
At the moment.
Yeah.
That's
Great.
the carrot.
Great. Yeah. Super. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Have you got a photo of it?
Yeah, I've seen them there on Auto Trader. So, but
do you see it every day?
No.
Then I'd encourage you to see it every
timing,
day.
perfect timing.
Yeah,
as I get my business hat on.
Get
it printed out.
I had a photograph of the car I was after. I had 3 photos of it. I had one photo on my shaving mirror, so I saw it every morning when I was having a shave. I had a photograph. I used to have a folder that I would lean up against the wall when I was making calls, and it had plastic leaves into which you could insert sheets of paper. And on one of the inserts, I had my phone script, and on the opposite insert, I had my picture of my car. So the one in the shaving mirror, one in the folder, and the third one was on the sun visor in my car. So when I would come out of an appointment, particularly after maybe having a bad appointment, got disappointed, didn't get that sale that I knew I'd get, and you sit there and you think, God, why am I doing this? And I just flick the visor down. That's what I'm doing.
That is brilliant.
Yeah, so I'd encourage you to get a photo of it.
I'm going to do that when I get home. That's brilliant.
Great.
Thank you. I've got a few more questions.
Yep.
We'll rattle through them. So, I suppose it's a bit of a toughie, but what's the most important quality for a good salesperson? I'm sort of feeling that it's about getting over that resilience almost, without wanting to put words into your mouth now.
No, I don't think it is. It's something that comes before that, even in my view. And I'm sure you could ask 50 sales trainers, and they might give you each a different answer.
Yeah, sure.
But in my view, the most valuable quality attribute you can have is a positive mental attitude, a glass half full, which obviously helps you deal with the no. It's one. But there's so many reasons why you need that positive mental attitude, and dealing with no is one of them, because as a salesperson, you deal with you are spending an awful lot of time listening to what you don't want to hear. And so you've got to have that ability to see the glass half full. Really, so I think that's the most valuable attribute a salesperson can have, or even just someone in business. Because again, if you're in business, you're in sales, whether you like it or not. You might not know it, but you've got to have that glass half full. See the upside, and I think it's important, because often when you say positive mental attitude, people think it's all kind of that's all fluffy. It's all rah, kind of everything's great, and that's not having a positive mental attitude. That's being delusional. Having a positive mental attitude isn't living in la la land. Having a positive mental attitude is being able to look at circumstances, and if they're not good, see an upside. Look for an upside. It's not sticking your head in your sand and telling yourself everything's great when it's not. That's crazy. Yeah. But if things aren't good, think, okay, what's the upside here? What's the opportunity here? Because there's always an upside. Sometimes you have to look hard for it, and that's a positive mental attitude.
Definitely, I've learned recently that using positive language is helpful. Use negative language, that is going to...
So damaging.
Yeah, damaging.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of books on PMA, but an easy one to read is called Flip It by Michael Heppel. That's, it's a dead easy read, but it's some simple strategies of getting your mind to flip instead of... Because thinking negatively comes easy to most of us. We don't go on a training course for it. We're just kind of pretty damn good at it. So you have to kind of train your mind.
Flip It by Michael Heppel.
Flip It.
Flip It.
Flip It, yeah.
I'll have a look at that one as well. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I've got a friend who's a salesperson, and she's told me that being told no is a buying signal. Do you agree with that, or can you help me understand it a little more? Because
Well, with all due respect to your friend, I can't see it as a buying signal.
Yeah.
To be honest, but it's not a bad thing. My strongly held belief is that what good salespeople do is they get their customers, their potential customers, to make a decision.
Yeah.
That's what they do. They are, and I refer to them. I've got a name for them. I call them mind maker-uppers. That's what good salespeople do.
Mind maker-uppers.
Mind maker-uppers. They get people to make up their mind. So obviously, if the customer makes up their mind and the answer they give you is yes, I want to buy from you, that's great. No, I don't want to buy from you is also a very good answer. It's not quite as good as yes, but it's a very good answer. And the reason it's a good answer, the reason both of them are good answers, because they both leave the seller in a situation where now, unless they do something about it, they now need someone else to talk to. Because the customer who said no, right, they're at the picture. The customer who said yes, well, they bought. So now what I have to do is find someone else to talk to in order to make the next sale. And for that reason, yes and no are good answers. It's the answers in between. Those are the damaging answers. Those are the ones that kill salespeople. The ones that the customer says, yeah, well, leave it with me, and I'll think. And the salesperson doesn't have the wherewithal, the skills to be able to bring that to a decision, as I say, yes or no. They're both good answers, and yes is better, but no's not a bad answer. Leave it with me. That's a killer. Let me think about it. That's a killer.
I understand,
because that creates the illusion to the seller that, maybe there's some business there. The reality is the customer in 99% of those cases means, no, I ain't going to buy it. They just don't want to say no. They just don't want to say it.
But another nugget for me there, the decision maker-uppers.
Mind maker-uppers.
Mind maker-uppers.
Your job is a mind maker-upperer.
I like that.
Yeah, it's not to get yes. You don't have to corner someone or try and trap them, get them to say yeah. That's not selling. That's pressurizing. That's bullying.
We're looking for in sales. We're looking for the yes, aren't we? So yeah, no allows you to. Again, it allows you to move on.
Yeah, that's right.
That unknown in the middle.
That's the killer.
See, that's gold right there. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the killer. And I do wish someone had told me that when I first went into sales, because I was always sent out to sales to get the sale, get the sale, get the sale.
So you stayed on that. You stayed on that. It was still there.
Yeah, that's right. You didn't want to look because you thought, well, if I get a no here, that's failure. But I wouldn't say get the sale, get the sale. Get a decision. Right. Get a decision. Get a decision.
Austin, I know you support businesses by developing their sales talent, and also you run the biannual training sales skills workshops. Is there one little nugget you wouldn't mind sharing with our listeners and viewers who want to improve their approach and be a more successful salesperson? We've had quite a few, I believe, so far.
Good, that's good. The thing that I'd like to share, and it's not spoken much in selling, but I think it's so important in sales, or again in business. It doesn't matter what business you're in or what product you're selling. The chances are you've got a competitor who is selling something that looks pretty much the same as yours, at least to the customer. It looks pretty much the same thing. Okay? And so what as sellers or businesses we have to be able to do is differentiate, and everyone knows this word, differentiate. We've got to be able to differentiate somehow our business, our product, ourselves from the competition. Now to do that and to do it well and effectively so it makes a difference is you need creativity. You've got to be creative. So the nugget, if you like, that I think it's a nugget because people don't talk about it. One of the skills you have to develop as a entrepreneur, but especially as a salesperson, you've got to be creative. And most people, when I say that to them, or a lot of people say, yeah, but I'm not creative, Austin. No, you are. You are creative. You just haven't worked at it for the last 20 years or 30 years. You can be creative. And one of the things I share in my workshop is the different ideas, simple things you can do every day to help start to teach your mind to think creatively, to start being creative.
I'm looking forward to it already. I mean, this creativity is something that's been coming up in and around the social media that I've been looking at in my studies. Creativity, that's what helps. It's what helps differentiate.
Massively. Without creativity, you're not going to differentiate. In my view, you just got to be creative in order to separate your product that looks pretty much the same from the other one. You've got to be creative there.
I had some help with this question from a friend. When I talk to restaurant owners, they tell me it's tough to find a really good waiter. And when I talk to website designers, they tell me it's really tough to find good creative people. And in fact, business owners generally tell me that they find it's very tough to find really good people for any position.
Right.
Is it the same in sales? And if so, what is it that prevents people from becoming really good at selling?
Yes, it is the same in sales. It's very difficult to find really good salespeople. You can find mediocre salespeople pretty much by the bucketful, but really good salespeople are hard to find. And the thing that stops the mediocre, and sometimes even the poor, but from becoming really good, there's a number of things, but the major thing that stops mediocre salespeople from becoming really good is their ego.
Really?
Really, it's their ego. And it's a really difficult line for people to walk, because in sales you need to have a good ego.
Yes.
Because you're going to take a battering with that
confident,
rejection, all those kind of things. So you've got to have good self-esteem and a good ego. But the mediocre salespeople, which is the vast majority, will tell themselves that they know what they're doing. Hey, I don't need to learn anything new. I don't need to learn new. So I know what I'm doing. And they'll say that, and all evidence is to the contrary, because they'll be earning, 35, 40, 45,000 pounds a year, which is more than the average. But as a seller, as a salesperson, you should be making more than that. Selling it was described to me as the highest paid hard work in the world, or the lowest paid easy work. And you've got to be on the right side of that equation. And ego holds the mediocre back, because, as I say, they just take that attitude of, I know what I'm doing. I don't need to learn any new sales ideas. This is the way I've done it for the last 5 years. And
that should be alarm bells ringing right there. This is how I've always done it.
Yeah, that's right.
I can't improve. I can't get better. I know where I'm at. Right.
That's right.
That makes sense.
Your best sports people are sports teams. You can imagine if they took that attitude. When I can't really get any better. We're not going to do training anymore at Liverpool FC this year because we're pretty good. We thought we'd scrap all the training sessions. But salespeople, the mediocre ones, they somehow I can see that said to someone who's been in sales for maybe 10 years, what's the last book you read on selling? And I get that glassy look, and they haven't read one.
Yeah, so I mean, turning that person around, getting them to look, I suppose, inwardly at where they are, and how that can be holding them back.
Yes,
that's quite something to be able to do. As you said, they've got that ego right there, haven't they?
Yeah, very difficult to be able to do.
To be self-reflective enough to say, look, well. No, you're not actually without. Well, it's a no again, isn't it? But that's quite hard no, that isn't it?
Yeah.
No.
And the longer the person's been mediocre, the harder that is. And I can say that because after 2 years in sales, for the first 2 years I went into sales at 20 thinking, I'll be great at this, right? With the kind of confidence that comes with being 20 and stupid, I thought, I'll be great. And I was kind of gutted to discover that I wasn't. But I was arrogant enough in those first 2 years to resist the idea of reading books on sales or putting myself on training courses or anything like that. And guess what? Hey, presto! After 2 years, I was on the verge of going broke. Yeah. I can remember being weeks away from. I'd actually worked out how much longer I could last because I was self-employed, of course. And I was on the verge of going broke, and I was fortunate. I got to hear a motivational speaker who was someone who had been in the life insurance business. Yep. So he made us, over a period of a couple of hours, he made us, the audience, about 200 of us in the audience, laugh and cry at some of the realities of selling and some of the hypocrisy in selling and the downright lies that are involved in selling when, for example, salespeople are being recruited, where there's lots of lies often told on both sides of the table, but which is unbelievably stupid. But anyway, I listened to this guy, and over that couple of hours, he completely transformed how I looked at selling.
Really?
He completely changed it and made me realise that you're a schmuck, Austin, and what you've got to do is you've got to learn. You don't know anything. You know a fraction of what you need to know to succeed.
So did that change your
outlook
right then, and from
right
the path
then,
right from to where we are now?
Yeah,
that's defined.
Yeah,
how you've approached.
Yeah, he was a guy called Charlie Jones. He's dead now, bless him. He was called Charlie Jones, and he said something that reverberated, it still does to this day with me. He said, "You will be, in 5 years' time, exactly the same person you are today, except for two things: people you meet and the books you read." And then he went on to tell us about, gave us the title of the books and the ideas he got from this book, which helped him at that particular stage in his career. And then he told us about another book and the idea he got from that, and then the next book and the idea he got from that, and how he used it. And I'm listening to this guy who's an incredibly successful guy in the life insurance business, which is the kind of business I was in. And he's telling me that all these best ideas he got from books, and that's the one thing that I spent 2 years staying away from.
Yeah.
And I thought,
wow.
And finally the penny clicked, and I thought, wow. And that was it. And then I became a bookaholic. And so I always hope in some small way I can have a fraction of the impact on people when I'm doing my training workshops that guy had on me in his 2 hour motive. If I can just, have a fraction of that impact on somebody, just one person in the room, I know that potentially I can help them change their life for the better forever.
Yeah, that's a great story, and across the board for me. And if you believe you don't need to learn it, then you're just staying still, or going backwards.
Yeah,
you're only growing, becoming better by seeking knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Lovely. So I definitely want to ask you about the process involved in becoming an author, and, and how you've enjoyed that. We touched on it before we started the show. Did it feel like starting out again, being involved in like such a new venture?
Yeah, it does. It's even now it feels strange when I've got my author's hat on. Of course, when people discovered I was intending to becoming an author, they said, "Okay, have you written a book on sales, Austin?" I go, "No, no, I haven't actually, but it's something I intend to get around to." But no, but what it does lend itself to selling, because again, it's another illustration of me walking my own talk. You've got to be creative in selling, and that's where this particular book came from. It came from me over the years, trying to be creative, and the thing I used for my creativity, or one of the things I used to write, is to write poetry. And I wrote poetry just for my own pleasure, and never intending ever to publish any of it. And it's almost as though sometimes I haven't even written the poem, because I kind of write, poems just kind of come to me, and I write them down, and sometimes then I look at them and think, "Hey, that's good, that." Yeah. Or I'll look at it and think, "That is rubbish." But as I say, I never...
Do you take that rejection from yourself?
Yeah, from myself, yeah, that's right, move on. And so sometimes I can write, 3 or 4 poems in a week, and then write nothing for a year, and they just kind of come. So then I got this during the lockdown, my wife, Janet, bless her, who's my biggest fan and my biggest critic, she said to me, "Austin, some of your poems are great. Why don't you publish one of them, And there was one that I'd written that was a children's poem, and I've written them for adults and all kinds of stuff. But anyway, this one was a children's poem, and I really liked this particular poem, so I thought, it tells a nice little story in it as well. So I thought, lockdown, coronavirus, I've got, what the heck, let's try and get this published. So that's how it came about, and we're at a point now where it's published, and it's making sales, but the process was good. The hard part now is, and I'm feeling kind of out of my depth, because I trying to get the book into bookshops. Could it be nice to walk in a bookshop and see it on the shelf? Yeah. I mean, it's on Amazon.
So that is back to knocking on doors a little bit.
That's right. Yeah, it is.
Picking up the phone.
That's right. Picking up the phone
and in the yellow pages.
That's right. So no, it is. I'm back there. So you're contacting bookshops and all the rest of it, and them saying no thanks, or no, what you need to do is you need to go through the wholesaler or whatever it is.
Oh, my
and I'm kind of figuring stuff out as I go along. So yeah, that's where I am. So even though I can say it's listed on Amazon, which is great, and if people want to buy it off Amazon, that's fine.
I've got a first edition signed copy.
There you go.
And the boys absolutely
that'll be worth
it.
A lot. You could be on the Antiques Roadshow in a few years. First edition.
But it is, it's maybe a little different from some of the other books that I read to my children. In the alliteration there, it is just lovely.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I get a lot of pleasure from it. I believe in the book. I really do. I like it. So I'm hoping that it'll take off
at some point. Yeah, get the traction.
At some point, because it just,
I think it deserves it as well. And and again, I've got to say, it's more than just that front to back. It's got the pages in the back with more
Yeah,
more content in there.
Yeah, more different content.
I'm sure that's part of the value. Surely that's the value.
The added
What can I make? What can I
that's
do
right.
Slightly different?
No, that's right. You're absolutely right. That's a differentiator. You don't find that in children's books.
No, not at all.
Little differentiator, and it's fun, and it enables the kids and parents to get engaged with it.
And there's a tech involvement there.
That's right.
Michael was saying, can we go to the
QR code? Yeah, go to the U Club. That's right. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Again, it helps it stand on its own compared to others. So yeah, I mean, I'm biased. Of course, I'm biased, but I think the book and the little story in it and the rhyming words and all the rest, I think it deserves to do well.
It deserves to do well.
I really do think that. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks again.
You're welcome.
When you hang your sales hat up at the end of the day, what do you do to relax?
I play tennis, not particularly well. But I play. I like to play tennis, and I'm a mediocre club player, but I do enjoy playing tennis. My first love was football, but then you get to an age, particularly when you're self-employed, you think I better stop doing this because I'm getting older and it's taking longer to get over the injuries. But I do enjoy my tennis, so I play tennis normally at least twice a week. Sometimes 3 times, and that keeps me fit and healthy, and it's getting on the court with a bunch of guys and playing some doubles and singles or whatever and having some banter. It's good fun. So for all kinds of reasons I enjoy the tennis. I like competitive sport, keeps me fit, keeps me healthy. So yeah, that's what I do. Sales training, what I do it is if you like, it is a hobby. I mean, I'm very lucky. I do what I want. I'm doing what I want to do. I came out of retirement to do this. I'm one of those people who, is getting paid to do something they just love to do, Because you put in the hard yards as well, and that's it. Looking at your history when, you sold the financial company. Yeah. And it seemed pretty quickly that you came out of the retirement because that's it. You missed. Yeah, I missed the buzz of sales. Yeah, I built 2 sales businesses and sold them. One in the UK I built and sold that, and then I built another one abroad and sold that. And after I retired, my goal, I set a goal when I was almost 22. Careful. That's right. I got to retire by the time I was 50. I set a goal to retire by the time I was 50, and I retired when I was 49, and I'm proud of that. But then after a couple of years of being retired and busy, I mean, it was busy because I was doing some voluntary work with charities and playing tennis, playing tennis 4 or 5 times a week. So I was really busy, but I missed the buzz of sales and making sales and helping people sell. I just missed that buzz, and I thought that's what gave me the most pleasure when I was building my companies, teaching my guys how to sell and all the rest of it. So I thought, hey, why don't I just do that? I'll do that, and I just took it from there, and off it went, and effectively knocked on a few doors, rang, and and it ultimately got a contract, and off we went. Yeah. And I was looking at AustinHempstead.com on LinkedIn. When you've got the little bio about what you do there, one thing that really stood out with me is the small sentence there: selling is persuading with integrity. Yeah, that's my definition of selling. Yeah, it's persuading with integrity. Selling gets such a lot of bad press, and sadly, I hate to say it, but it's true. Usually it's for good reason, because so many people are given the task of making sales, but never taught to sell. And then we wonder why customers have such a bad experience dealing with this. Okay, the person's got salesperson written on their business card or business development executive, but that doesn't make them a salesperson. Just because you've got business development, I could have brain surgeon written on a business card. It doesn't make me a brain surgeon. But so many companies, sadly, and business owners as well, who know they need to sell, and they just don't ever get into any proper formal sales training. And so we as customers, you, me, everybody else, we often find ourselves being sold to by someone who we think is a salesperson. But they're not. They're just someone who's been given the task of making sales. And it just came to mind that you don't see people internally in an organisation. They're maybe just as mediocre, but you don't see them. You see that front line. That's it. You hear the salesperson. So that just makes sense to me. That's why they're not any better or worse than any other role within an organisation. No. It's just they're the people at the front line. They're the people on the front line that the customer has to deal with. Even more important, therefore, to get
that training
That's
to get the right
right.
people there.
That's
Just
right.
comes to mind. It makes sense, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And so many companies spend nothing or next to nothing teaching their people how to sell. And I come back to the example of the sports team. Can you imagine a sports team deciding not to train its people?
Yeah.
You think, the people that say, "But they're crazy. How can you not train your people? How can you not do that?" Same with sales, in my view. You've got to train people, and it's a forever thing. You never ever stop. Never.
I'd agree wholeheartedly. Well, thanks for your time today, Austin. It's been lovely to talk to you. Really lovely, and lots of insight there.
Good.
Lots of nuggets.
Good.
Tons of quality, tons of value add.
Value, that's the
Yeah.
word. That's the word. Okay, well, thanks for inviting me. It's been a pleasure talking.
You're welcome.
Thanks a
Thank you,
lot,
Austin.
Matthew. Cheers.
Cheers.